Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the digital transformation track. Welcome to this presentation. Welcome, everybody. So I think I misspelled my title. It should have been Start, Structure, Scale, Why Digital Transformation Cannot Boil the Audience. I think that was happening in the track before. Luckily, it's a little bit less people, so we should be okay, hopefully. And we get the temperature at a steady level. In my day-to-day job, I get the opportunity to speak to lots and lots of customers of ours and organizations soon to be a customer, hopefully. And I think one theme is very common across all these organizations. It's about getting ready to be a digital enterprise. And what a digital enterprise is really depends. There's lots of definitions, lots of ambition levels, but all organizations that I go to, by nature of the visit, obviously have an ambition to grow and to become more digital. And I think we've heard it before, and there's a little bit of a repeat here, but maybe some people not yet that familiar with the model. This is the model that most organizations use to become a digital enterprise. Basically, it's Gartner's model, as we know by now. It's 2 lanes. It's the fast lane, mode 2, and it's the IT traditional lane, mode 1. Mode 1, we clearly know what to do. We take our time to be as stable as we can, and mode 2 is more about the dynamics of the business interaction, right? So this model is very well known, I guess, very well used a lot, and clearly we fit, as Mendix, fit in mode 2 pretty well. The teams that you use are using Agile, the teams right there, could be using waterfall or some other form, but more linear. The teams, the size is different. There's lots and lots of difference why you want to do this. And I guess this is something that we pretty much know by heart. And it's a model to achieve a certain goal, right? I'm not here to defend the model. I kind of accept it as being a model to work on. And I guess you can see mode 2 as a startup within a company. And that's also how Eric Rice defines it. He wrote a book, The Lean Startup, basically about his learnings on starting his own company, which failed the first time. But he learned a lot, and that's good, I guess. And he thinks the following. So it's really paradoxical. You want to think big, you want to start bimodal, but you have to start small and scale up pretty fast. And I think the second sentence is even more important. Basically what it says is we know where we want to go, and we have this vision, and instead of going to this vision in one step, we really have to take it step by step. It's a life lesson as well. We have to learn the journey, we have to live the journey, experience the journey to get to the end result, and on the way make smart decisions. And I think that's primarily what he's learned over the time. So his model in the book is about build, measure, learn. So do something, measure whether it made sense or not, learn from it, and continue. And I think this is the same for the digital transformation program that we run. And basically, this is all inspired, obviously, by some blog posts that Roald and others wrote. And one of them was named, You Can't Boil the Ocean when it comes to digital transformation. And English is not my native tongue, so I had to kind of look up what it really meant, boil the ocean. It's very relevant today, I think. But it's a phrase that was actually started in World War I, and there was a problem of the German U-boats across all the oceans, and they were becoming very dominant. And the Americans, they found a way, they thought, to solve that problem. Basically, they wanted to just boil the ocean, and all the U-boats would go up pink and neutralized. However, it's not possible, right? So we all know that. I think, we are actually, as mankind, trying to boil the ocean very slowly, unfortunately, 1 degree every 155 years, but it's not fast enough. So it's a big task, right? Becoming digital enterprise, adopting bimodal is a very big task. And why is it such a big task? Well, there's a lot at stake. It's a change process. The whole organization needs to follow. And secondly, change can only work if you have proof along the way. So you need to take baby steps, prove what you do is the right thing, and then continue. And those 2 things make it impossible to boil the ocean as we speak. So in the previous presentation, and I think most of you were there, but if not, we kind of divided the big work that we need to do into 4 dimensions, I call them. It's portfolio, people, process, and platform. Now, the portfolio is about which projects am I going to do mode 2, and which one. But also about what priorities am I going to give. How am I going to find new projects? How am I going to fund new projects? Those are all questions you need at some point during the journey need to be able to answer. And portfolio is the most important of all of them because portfolio is needed for change. So change needs value. You're not going to change an organization if you can't explain the value for the change. And you need the portfolio to clarify the value, right? So portfolio is by far the most important. Obviously, the people are also important. They need to do the work. And it's not just about, agile, but it's about business IT collaboration. It's about leadership. It's about support from the top of your organization to support you in this change, which can become at points quite difficult. So there's a whole set of questions around it. There's process, agile or DevOps or continuous deployment. Lots of things here which you have to think and adopt and embrace to get this done. And last but not least, it's platform. Platform is more the technology side, and the whole event is about technology, is about platform, so I'm going to spend the least the time of all, I guess. But it's important to have a platform that supports it. Now, why is this important? Those 4 dimensions basically break the big work up in smaller chunks. And you have to take care of all the 4 Ps during your journey. You cannot neglect one of them. So it's kind of like a mental map of the things that need to do. So make the big work smaller. We call them the 4 Ps. We also have the 4 S's, and they've been shown before. Start, structure, scale. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but what I'd like to do in the duration of this presentation is pretty much share the lessons learned, the do's and the don'ts. Don'ts and the do's that we learned from being with our customers, that customers told us that this works, this does not work. It's just very practical for everybody to know these things, right? And the 3 S's are about starting, one app, one first app, 30 days. Then go into structure where you develop another 5 to 10 apps. Probably takes you a little bit longer, like 6 months. And then you go into scale where you massively develop applications, maybe hundreds. There are companies, organizations that we know that develop, a couple of hundred already, and they're growing really, really fast. And obviously, during each phase, you need to pay attention to specifics, but I'll get to that. So let's start with the start phase, obviously. And this is about your first proof. So what you want to achieve in a very short time frame, say 30 days, develop an app. An app that we develop together with us, or together with a partner, or yourself as an organization. And you have to pick the right team to do this. And one of the very important things is that during this process, you're going to learn a lot. So the collaboration between business and IT is very, very important. It's a learning exercise for business as much as IT. And probably the most important of all is not so much the finished product. You'll bring something in production. It could be a minimal viable product, but nevertheless, it's a production-worthy application. But the most important part here is the celebration, like Roald discussed before. And for those who weren't here, he brought the cake, and the cake is about sharing and finding more sponsors and more PR. That's the most important thing. So you need to have a project, keep it small, implement it quickly, learn from it, and share the positive experience. Now, what I'd like to do now is spend a little bit more time on the lessons learned. And I'll take the first one first. So I get the question often, how big is a Mendix team? We want to start, but how big is our team? Is it 6 or 7? And 6 and 7 actually comes from more traditional development. So Jeff Bezos from Amazon actually says, you need to find a team that can be fed by 2 pizzas. I'm not suggesting you feed your Mendix team for 30 days on pizzas alone, but 2 pizzas is what they should get by with. So how many can be fed off 2 pizzas? That's another question. Well, according to him and some Googling, I think the consensus is 4 or 5 or 5 to 6. That's about a bigger team. And why is this rule so important? Basically, what Jeff says is, the communication between the team becomes too much. You have to start writing documentation and communicate more than develop. So keep your team very small. Now in Mendix, we take this a step further. We say you can feed 2 to 3 people off 2 pizzas. The Mendix developers are lucky guys, they get more to eat. So 2 to 3 people is about the maximum size we would recommend for a start phase. And even during your further up developments, 2 to 3 people is a very practical size, and you can build really good applications there. Sometimes you need to fly in some expertise, so you'll add some to the team, but 2, 3 are the core. And those will be, as we probably know by now, it will be the more technical business analyst or the more business-centered IT guy. Together, they'll form a splendid team to build applications. So, small team altogether. That's basically a lesson learned. The other thing is the celebration. Again, I stated it before, but the key reason for the start phase is not the finished product, it's the celebration. So the bigger the cake, the better. And the cake, again, is not for the development team, unfortunately. So they lived on pizzas for 30 days, and they don't even get the cake. The cake is for the people that weren't there, and we just want to show them what a success we've achieved. And I have the opportunity sometimes to go to customers to be in such a celebration, and it's amazing to me all the time that people are still amazed by the things you can do in 30 days. You can develop so much in 30 days. And this is a perfect opportunity also to learn new opportunities. I mean, it's very typical that during such a celebration event, which lasts half an hour to an hour, you learn about 5 potential new projects that you can do, because other people say, hey, if you can do this in 30 days, I have something for you. I have something there. So it's an extremely important ceremony, let's say, out of the start phase. And it should not be there for just the development team. And that's a common mistake I sometimes see happening. Now, if you go to the right side, this feels like cheating, I think. Let me see if you agree. But the type of application that you want to choose as a starting application should have limited external dependencies. The reason is because they will slow you down. And to be honest, if I look at the Gartner model in a bit more detail and read about it, one of the common concerns about the model is that it doesn't describe how mode 1 and mode 2 work together. And if you have in your start phase this complexity, because mode 1 is typically a lot less fast than mode 2, and you run into this challenge in your start phase, you'll not get your proof, and that is the primary thing. So in the first project, try to limit external dependencies. It sounds like cheating, but after 30 days, you'll get your opportunity to take this challenge. So don't worry about it. You'll get there, and you'll solve it. But not in the first phase, right? You want to go for the proof. And the other one is the blast radius. Also, you want to pick a project that is very visible, so people can talk about it, they know what it does. But you don't want to pick a project that is like mission critical, because your developers, they will probably be challenged in submitting a new release very often. They will be super cautious. So again, sounds like cheating, but you'll get your opportunity later. So basically, pick the right project, that's the portfolio, take the right people and the right team, and you'll have a success, guaranteed. So the start phase, you can get through by pure stamina, by willpower. It becomes a little bit more difficult when we go to the structure phase. So in the structure phase, you basically are repeating the success that you had, and you're using probably the same team or doing small amendments, but it's a similar team, but now they are going to do 5 to 10 applications. And that's another ballgame, because you can go on stamina and pizzas for 30 days, but you can't keep that up for half a year. So you need to structurize this a bit. You have to structure your team. You have to think about resourcing. Maybe you want to involve external partner. You want to do it yourself. You have to get training in order. And here you will also take some bigger applications. So here the cheating is over. This is the real world, and we're going to build applications for real. So the structure phase is very, very important. People are still important, portfolio is important, but process, the third P here, becomes also very important. Now, a couple of lessons learned again. Contrary to Scrum, you do probably want to let the business people talk to your developers. I think Scrum is very formal about this. All communication should go through the product owner, and the Scrum Master should really shield that kind of interaction. Now, our best practices tells you can actually allow the end users to speak with your engineers. First off, your engineers are more business savvy typically in a Mendix project. And second of all, they need the input, very much so. And they welcome the input because they can take the input much quicker into production than maybe in development teams. So Agile Scrum is good, but we can be better, we think. So let the end users talk to your developers in the end, to a certain level, right? The other thing is very important as well. It's on the right side now. The business IT collaboration is critical. And basically what an organization has done, they have mandatory put up a workshop. So for every new project that business and IT start together, there's going to be a half-day workshop where they basically discuss the process, the technology, what they're going to build, but also clearly describe to each other what the expectations are. So what business expects of IT, a good product, a good new app, and also what IT expects, of the development team expects from business, and that is being there, responding to questions in a very timely manner. And that is sometimes a challenge, I have to say. I come to projects and I really see that the business is struggling to keep up with the development team. So this organization has actually introduced a yellow and red card system like in football. Basically, one time you're not delivering according to your promise, you get a yellow card, second time you're out, and they stop the project. Sounds like very strict, but it's good to at least set expectations on a mutual basis. And my intention is of today to speak to the customer and ask whether they actually had to use it or not. But it's obvious, you need to have clear understanding between what to expect of each other. Another thing we learned the hard way is that in this structure phase, it is very important that you balance the type of projects that you pick. Don't spend all your time on one project. It's not a proper structure phase. The risk that it will bring is too big. Because if it will fail, and projects do fail, for whatever reasons, the budget can be frozen, or the initiative is no longer necessary, or there can be many reasons. So really spread the portfolio of the projects that you want to do in structure across the board. Some smaller ones in duration, some longer ones. Some are maybe a bit on mid-office, some maybe customer-facing, more innovative applications. Spread it as much as you can to reduce the risk. Instead, because if you fail in this project at this phase, it will certainly limit your options to prove the point that this works, this mode 2. And the fourth one is about how you organize your team. It's, again, a common misunderstanding that during your development, you want to spend as much as all time that you have on new things. It's actually much better to spend 20 to 30% not on new things, but on feedback from customers, right? So and allocate that in your project upfront. Reserve 20 to 30% minimum for the feedback loop, because the feedback loop, and that's the loop that business get to say, what they want and how they want it improved, and they need to see this wheel turning. And if you focus solely on new functionality, that's not going to happen. So best practice is 20, 30%, spend it wisely on feedback, and take that into account in your sprint planning. And very practical how this is typically done is just label the user stories. So these are for new functionality, these are for refactoring, these are for feedback, and there's always some unforeseen. So that's important to do. And it also gives you a very measurable effect, so you can see over time, how things are going. So these 4 learnings are very critical for the structure phase. That brings me to the final phase, the scale phase. In here, we're going large. So before we had one team, 2, 3 people. Here we go multiple teams. So instead of having all those teams individual, we set up a center of excellence. A center of excellence, or mode 2 excellence, really focuses on architecture decisions, design patterns, best practices, reuse of modules. They probably use the Mendix private app store to store components which are to be consistently reused across all applications. And also things like your development, your DevOps, continuous development. These topics become much, much more important here, because in the end, you want to set up a team that can handle many applications, maybe up to 10 to 100 applications a year, big and small. Some learnings here then. First of all is the factory line concept. One customer has actually made a very repeatable factory line setup where they have the center of excellence and they have a very predefined setup for all the individual teams. So those teams can start and they can scale them up across the various parts of the organization pretty rapidly. So it's almost becoming a factory. And the other thing is that in this phase, particularly things like quality assurance, testing, automated testing, becomes important because that's typically taking quite a bit of time. So by automating this, and as you figured out by now, the new version of Mendix will introduce more and more functionality in this respect, you get this factory line. You get a lot of repetitive work done by the system instead of by the end user. So this becomes critical, especially when you scale out to the sizes of the apps that you want to develop here. And last but not least is the software is a living thing. So it's a common question I get again. So what happens to applications once they are built in mode 2? Will they stay mode 2? Will they go mode 1? And it varies obviously. There's applications that you build and you continue to build them. They'll stay in mode 2. There's applications that you build and they're finished. They basically, are there. You have an option to do, just keep them in mode 2 or move them to mode 1. I think, the Gartner model is not very prescriptive in this. It's basically a decision you need to take yourself. But it's important that whatever you do in applications that continue to live, you need to refactor. You need to make sure they're maintainable over time. And again, there's a sort of like a golden rule that 20% of the applications, 20% of your time, put it in refactor work. Refactoring basically means that you continuously improve the application, not necessarily based on new functionality, but that's the only way you can ensure maintainability. And this suits a DevOps team pretty well. So here comes the DevOps angle. So the last learning of today in this structure phase is that obviously you have to apply some governance to mode 2 in this phase. And some interesting things that we see evolve at our customers is the ideation idea, and Roald touched upon it. But organizations, all the people that work there, they have got great ideas, mostly, and you need to collect that. You need to harvest that. Certainly when you have, you come to the scale phase where you have your factory set up to implement those ideas. So basically a program where everybody can submit the ideas and you pre-allocate time and budget to evaluate those ideas, maybe spend a day for the good ones to see what it means, how it can be implemented, and is it feasible, is it doable, and what would be the potential investment to get this into production. So how the company works, they spent one day with the Mode 2 team to get some ideas more tangible, put it up to a committee, which then evaluates whether it's a sensible idea or not. And then they spent an additional 4 to 5 days in building out the first prototype. And by that time, they've got everything they need to have a business case for it. So by that time, you just need to make the decision whether it fits in your program. And this is very different than what I sometimes see is that organizations that build applications fast, but they have very much trouble in getting to the building a business case, which are typically very long processes. So it totally takes away the speed if you want to do it the old way. Another organization, what they did is actually set up internal crowdfunding. So all the ideas they collect in a crowdfunding application, which actually was built with Mendix, and the internal departments can actually contribute money to the ideas. So you'll immediately see which ideas are probably very useful in the organization. So those are the things we do for the scale phase, and the things that we learned. We've got now several customers in this scale, so we ourselves are learning as well as we go. but it's definitely an interesting journey. So I started by saying that Eric Rice is actually propagating lean startup. And I see this as well as a lean startup. So introducing this into your organization is like a lean startup. And one of the things he mentioned is it's mandatory to have this build, measure, learn. And that's exactly what we do in our program. So the things that we offer and do with our customers is regularly, once they're in this program, have synchronization points. We start with an awareness session, and we then have check-in points. And basically, in those check-in points, we sit with the customer. We investigate what the ambition is for the next phase. What do we want to achieve? Because a digital enterprise is different for everybody. So what do we want to achieve? What are the required capabilities to get there? Do we need to help you get agile? Do we need to teach you about DevOps? And we assess the maturity, kind of like benchmark where we are. And from that moment on, we prioritize and work with the organization to get that, learnings done. So if it's agile they need, we set up an agile training, not necessarily with us or with an external agency or whatever, but we basically take them hand by hand to the next step. And together, we can do this. We can actually boil the ocean or boil the ocean, the audience, if you like. But that's something that we can do together. So with that, I kind of thank you. I'm a little bit early, but you can get some fresh air. I hope that's appreciated. So thank you very much for your attention. We cannot boil the ocean, really, but we can certainly help you. In the next tracks, you'll get more details about the various topics. It's in your app. You can see which topics those are. But we'll go into much more detail about all of the individual tracks. So thank you very much again, and enjoy your Mendix World.